Welcome back to Brain Doodles. This is Thomas Mashad, and in this lesson of faces and figures, we're going to look at taking the faces and figures and applying it to our notes specifically for a subject. Okay, and what we're going to be looking at today is the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, let's say if you have taken some traditional notes on the Supreme Court and you have what we normally look at as our linear notes here, and we need to get this to be more visual so it doesn't look quite so boring to our brain, because all of this looks very monotonous. And let's help us to get it in a format, an illustrated format, that helps our brain to remember some of the facts about the Supreme Court a little bit better. Let's take a look and see how we can do that. Okay, to start out, in your sheet of paper, you're going to start kind of in the center of your paper, okay? And here, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to draw a box and a triangle on top of that, a little bit larger than the box below, okay? And then inside that box, I'm going to draw a series of lines. And then at the base of the box, I'm going to draw a kind of a rectangle out, maybe slightly slanted at the sides. Okay, kind of a trapezoid look. And we could draw some lines in there if we wanted to as well. We don't necessarily have to, but those are going to be kind of the steps. And then the Supreme Court building, and this is what we're drawing out as the Supreme Court building, is that it has a couple of areas on both sides. We can draw that out as well. Now, this does not look pretty by any stretch of the imagination, does it? However, what this is just helping us to remember is that this is the Supreme Court building. Okay, and the other thing that we're going to do here is we're going to give it an acronym that the Supreme Court is known by, and that is SCOTUS. SCOTUS. Okay, and you'll notice that I've given some spacing here, because one of the things you could do is you could go back in and make it out to be block letters. Okay, so I could kind of outline everything and then go back in and fill things in. All right, if I wanted to do that. So that's one way you can bring in your lettering. You can, keep the outlines there if you want to. That's certainly fine. So Supreme Court of the United States. And so already we are combining our basic shapes and our lettering that we've already looked at. Okay. So SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add connectors. Connectors are lines with arrows, or they could be dots at the end or something like that. And this is going to be our first little area that we want to remember about the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, now in the United States we have 3 branches of government, and we can kind of picture this as a tree with, branches coming out, and we could have circles, and that could be, the leaves. Just kind of all clumped together. So they have, 1, 2, 3 branches of government. We have the executive, which is the president, and we could draw a little icon there for the president. We also have the legislative, and I'm just going to give little abbreviations for this. Legislative, and that's Congress, and we could also make a little icon for that if we wanted to. And then for the third one is the judicial. And that's the one that we're most interested in for the Supreme Court. And we could highlight that in some way. You could end up bringing in some color as well, maybe like highlighting it with yellow if you wanted to. And we're going to take a look at color later on in section 4. But for now, you could just take out a highlighter and make sure that you know that the Supreme Court of the United States is the judicial branch. All right. Now, how are we going to bring in faces and figures into this? Okay, now the Supreme Court of the United States, and we're going to add another connector and a line. Okay, another connector, line, an arrow. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to draw a figure. We're going to draw kind of like a triangle shape down and up, and then the circle. Okay, now the triangle shape down and up, this is our body that is representing the robe, the black robe that the Supreme Court justices wear. And then we can kind of shade that in. All right. Now we don't have to put legs down here if we don't want to, but we're going to make them very, very short because the robes hang down pretty far. Now, one of the things that we know is currently that there are 9 Supreme Court justices. So we could do like an X for multiplying, and 1 times 9 is 9. So we could letter out the number 9, and we could make that as a block letter if we wanted to. Okay. And so letting us know that there are 9 Supreme Court justices. And the number, we could always say, is determined by Congress. So we can say the number, how do we know that there's 9? Well, that was determined by Congress, and so we could do a little Capitol building here. You know, there's a little dome on top of the Capitol building with, stairs coming down, and they also have 2 branches, House of Representatives and the Senate. So, we could draw a little icon for the Senate. Okay, so here is one of our figures combined with lettering and combined with our basic shapes. Okay, so out of this, now we're not going to come back to the Supreme Court. We're going to deal with the justices, the 9 justices. Okay, that we have out of that we have the men. And there are 6 men. Okay, now how can we easily draw 6 men? Well, we're just going to do some little hills here. Okay, one right after another. 3, 4, 5, 6. And then draw heads on top of each one of those. Now that doesn't distinguish each one of these men. It's just saying that there are 6 men. And, we could end up saying, hey, listen, we know that these are men and not women simply because we kept them pretty plain. Okay, so women, how many are left over now? We have 3 because there's a 9 total. And we could make it, very generic once again. 1, 2, 3 hills with 3 circles. Now, to make these a little bit more like women rather than men, we could give them little, bits of curly hair, a little bit longer hair on top. Okay. So just little curls, half circles, whatever you want to see. Now, if we wanted to say, hey, listen, we want to know a little bit more about the women on the Supreme Court of the United States, okay? We could maybe draw a line and then, draw a connection down. And just to give you one example, and let's say that we were going to look at Ruth Gator Ginsburg. She's the elder woman, and her face has kind of this triangular shape, oval shape. It's a little bit wider on top, narrower down at the bottom. She has kind of large ears because she's a very thin woman, and so it makes her ears look a little bit larger. And her glasses also seem to really be too large as well. She wears kind of extremely large glasses. And then we can put small little eyes in there. Okay. Now her hair is usually always tied back, and so we could kind of put it in a bun if we wanted to. That kind of says that she is the older woman, kind of like a school teacher. Okay. And we could add in some more details from that as well. But that helps us to at least know that we could give her name, Ruth Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, so we could do that for each of the women. We could do that for Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Keegan. Okay, as of the making of this video, that's the 3 women that are sitting on the bench. And from then on out, we could do a lot more with this. How long do they stay in office? We could use the faces and figures for that. They stay in office in one of 3 ways. They stay there until they die, okay? Or we could say until their life ends, if we don't want to put death necessarily. They could stay there until they decide to leave. And so we could say somebody walking out. So we could make a little stick figure, one leg coming out, one leg kind of coming back with the foot on the ground. So until they decide to take their bags and retire. Okay, so that's another way that they could end up leaving. And the final way that they could end up leaving is that if Congress kicks them out. So we could end up maybe drawing a foot with a leg attached. Okay, and there's a little boot there that ends up kicking out the little stick figure. So the stick figure is flying out. So arms are sprawled out, legs are sprawled out, and so that they are impeached. Okay. So here we have it. We have the Supreme Court of the United States, that it's one of the legislative branches, or one of the branches of our government, that there's 9 justices, that there's 6 men, 3 women. One of them is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They stay there in one of 3 ways, leaving either through death, retirement, or impeachment. And so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how you not only you can use everything that you've learned up to this point, but also the faces and the figures within your sketch notes. All right, have fun to seeing how you can use this within your own notes.